Give it 1 second. Yeah, hey, good morning, everybody. It is your fun-filled host, Marty Mongello. I have the great pleasure today of having with us for the Othello is Disgusting exhibit in 2022. What a mouthful that is. But yes, are you ladies ready to get your game on?
Absolutely.
All right, so we have Dr. Joy Nicole Martinez. Very, very fortunate to have her, a world-renowned speaker, and also our friend, Dr. Pauline Crawford Amps, another world-renowned speaker, originally from London. So you'll get a chance to enjoy her accent here in a second if you haven't seen Dr. Joy Nicole. And we have Antoine Thomas today. Lucky again, Antoine, another show back-to-back for you today. 2 hours on TV. Antoine Thomas from Washington, D.C. And we'll get started immediately. Thank you so much to our guests today.
Well, Marty, I might need an agent, so.
Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us again at the Presents Network here at the United States Presidential Service Center. This one is a bit of a doozy. Everyone is wondering, what are they talking about? The Othello is Disgusting. Have these people lost their mind? And not only have we lost our mind, but we don't even know what we're doing. So we commonly do this at the Presidential Museum. We question ourselves and question experts and try to put together an exhibit, sometimes in glass, sometimes on film, sometimes as a presentation. Sometimes books are published out of these, like with Orlando Herrera Jr. out of Washington, D.C., and studies that he did for years at the Library of Congress. And that was with the No Darkies Sit in this section of the bus. That whole exhibit with President Obama and Rosa Parks. And then out of that, Orlando said, I want to publish a book on all of this in my research with the Presidential Center in 2 languages. So we have no idea what we're doing. Dr. Joy Nicole Martinez, do you have any idea what you're doing?
You know, it's yes and no. No, in the sense that I think we value spontaneity and diversity of thought and input, and that kind of synergistic way. Everything the Presidential Service Center produces is what makes it so unique and so fun and interesting. But yes, in the sense that you always bring together experts, people who are, just amazing in their field. And so there's that part of me that says, I love that we're coming together, just like, let's just see what happens. But at the same time, we're all people who have worked diligently and studied long and hard. This is our areas of expertise. It's where we have worked and learned. And so, yes and no. I do and don't know what I'm doing.
Well, God bless. Antoine Thomas out of Washington, D.C., licensed private investigator for the state of Maryland, wealth management expert, and George Washington University student. I bring up the licensed private detective aspect because this gentleman is used to doing research and investigation and digging. Antoine, your comments? Oh, do I have him muted again?
Well, I'm also in the top. Oh, no, can you hear me?
Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, coming through loud and clear.
Okay. Well, I'm also, okay. I also don't know what I'm doing, but I prefer it that way. That way no one else knows what I'm doing. So. But yeah, thanks for the intro. Yeah, the private investigation thing is very important. It's something that I've wanted to do for a while. When you're dealing with people and human nature, you know, diversity, race relations, ethnicity, a lot of, you know, cultures intermix with one another. So you also have people who don't share those ideologies. So you always need to know who you're dealing with, and you also need to protect the people you're working with. So.
Yep, absolutely, absolutely. And I'd like to throw it over to you, Dr. Pauline Crawford-Obbs.
Hi there. I love what you're saying. I think that's absolutely brilliant. My passion is world harmony. So a bit of a big ask, but I love what you said, Dr. Joyner, that synergy. I talk about real synergy. How can we get our act together? How can we have conversations which are what I call magical? And that means we don't have any judgment, and yet we're living in a world full of judgment at the moment. So without judgment and without anger, we're creating value together. We're here to create this world together, and yet we don't seem to have that unification. So I love the unknown. So I love what you're saying, Marty. It is about valuing differences, meeting people where they are, being curious, being interested and interesting, all of those things. So I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. As a Londoner from UK living in Las Vegas, I lived in Malaysia as well. So I've got some ideas of different populations around the world. And the bottom line is that we're all human beings and we all like happiness. I don't believe anybody really wants to live in fear. And yet we seem to have a lot of that. So I'm delighted to be here. Oh, back over to you, Marty.
All right. Well, super. Thank you so much. At this point, since introductions have gone so well, I'm going to shoot over to actually sharing for the studio audience a little bit about what's going on. We are broadcasting on 8 networks today, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and of course, YouTube. Everything is live. If you were coming into our website and came into presidentialservicecenter.org or the innofthepatriots.com, these will ultimately lead you. You'll see the header up here, Presidential Center, the United States Presidential Service Center. And you would see, you know, this page and the various different things that we have done. Here's that one exhibit that I talked about over here. And this was the No Darkies Sit in this section of the bus. This was opened on December 1st, the day that Rosa Parks was arrested in 2018. And Antoine and Orlando came here from Washington, D.C. and did the live fireside chat here, which was broadcast. And then Orlando's book, which is available for sale in the gift shops. So if you're in our shop, you'll notice his book right here. But let's just say you had come into the Presidential Center. Notice that drop down there, and it has our trustees and board. And I would like to just highlight Dr. Joy Nicole is right down here. There's Orlando. He's a board member. So this kind of just adds up things and fills in the blanks. Here's Orlando, who's speaking today, a trustee.
Antoine.
And here is Dr. Joy Nicole Martinez. And her link is actually right there to LinkedIn if you want to link with her. Dr. Joy Nicole Martinez. And also, I would like to connect up if anybody wants to see Dr. Pauline Crawford Amps. She is right here. So feel free to connect with them. And there's a direct link, of course, to Antoine, but I'll just showcase his LinkedIn profile here. Please connect with these people. And we'll just run back up to the top again. And this particular project is a presidential project. So did you see that there where I clicked on presidential project? And it kind of got started last year just over here when the Museums and Race group hosted nationwide their Imagine a Radical Future conference. And this was held in the spring of last year. And this is where this took off. It was May 19th of 2020 last year. And we were invited during the virtual happy hour with a poster session to present a poster about Othello is Disgusting, because the museum community across the United States was a bit shocked and stunned to see that somebody was willing to take on skin color in the museum community. And so we did exhibit, and I'll get into that. And the poster is here that Raina was 9 years old at the time. She designed this poster. When a black man touches a white woman, Othello is disgusting. This is what President John Quincy Adams said at many dinners, and then wrote articles about this and published it in the newspapers in Boston. So that is what this whole exhibit is attempting to do. And Dr. Joy Nicole, any comments about this and the direction we're headed in and what we think we're trying to do?
Yeah, I think what we're trying to do is spark authentic, but what some might say, when I say friction enhancing or abrasive, not disrespectful, right? We want to create a safe space, a safe psychological space where we can have real transparent discussion about race relations, and cultural difference. And usually when we talk about race, you have people who just walk into a room and they try to, in one way or another, convince the person that doesn't share their race that they quote unquote appreciate, honor, accept, don't harm any ill will toward them. Right. But I think what we're trying to do is dig a little deeper and say, hey, why is that necessary? Why is it in our culture now? We feel like that is a responsibility that I have to, upon meeting you, Marty, I have to remind you or somehow let you know that I hold no ill will. Let's just talk about why that is there as a root cause. Let's talk about how we can embrace difference, and let's do it in a way that we can be honorable to one another, but truthful, and that we can kind of hash out some of these stereotypes, fallacies, these cultural barriers and obstacles, these stoppages that get in the way. And I think you really can't do that unless you're willing to have challenging conversation. It's so easy to talk about, oh, well, I hear people say I'm colorblind, but the truth is we should not be, unless that is just your medical vision issue, right? We should not be. We should allow each person to be as colorful and beautiful as they are. And my being beautiful should not in any way encroach or impinge upon your being beautiful. And when we can do that, when we can see each other's beauty as humans, we can all be in the garden and be wonderful and colorful and be appreciated by those who see us. And I think that only happens when we get past our ego and our hubris, and we just come with honesty and transparency and just put it all on the table.
It's amazing. Yep. And I don't think we talk enough And certainly the slate of issues that we have scheduled up are extremely rough. We have a slate of issues that we would like to talk about. And we would like to talk with each other, not to each other. And so while we all feel like it's super important, I think as we move into this year, we have to realize this is going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult.
And you have the conversation maker.
Well, I was going to say, let's not make it difficult. We got to be really careful about the words that we use. You know, every word that comes out of our mouth has an influence. And in a way, you know, that statement, Othello is disgusting, which came from that original quote, it will attract people to and jar with people. But essentially, everything in the world comes down to love and fear. Mm-hmm. And, you know, if we understand that love is expansion and fear is contraction, how come we are not able to love everybody? It's like I would get up in the morning and I say, right, you know, I just love this world and every single thing in it, the trees, the animals, people, the situation. So it's my world expanding by having conversations, and let's be curious about each other. I love what you said, Dr. Johnny Kell, is that we are all beautiful. We are amazing in our differences. So I look a lot about valuing differences. This is my philosophy of life. Unless we value the differences between us, but we have to first love ourselves, and not in an ego sense. Ego is what gets in the way. Ego is what causes fight. Judgment is what causes fights. So we need to understand everybody has a unique value, and we are the same as Homo sapiens. And I've heard you say that, Marty. But, you know, I'm different because I'm British. I'm not, it doesn't mean I'm better or not than you're all American. We all have our differences, old, young, sexual variations, color, race, everything. This is the magic and the mixture that makes life so interesting. And that's why I can't understand why people can hate each other when in fact we're all here in the same game. So I want to make it not difficult. I want to make it maybe what's the creative possibilities that we can bring together. Let's be really careful about our language. Invite people to be their own good value. What's your natural talent? What do you want to be and do, and what do we want to do together? So that the essence of value creation is, if I know myself and I get to know you and me, I can enjoy the we. And it's the we that's not unified at the moment. And even in lockdown, you know, families are apart. You know, my family's in England. I haven't seen them for coming up for a year and a half. I see them on Zoom, yes, but it's not the same as being physically in touch with them, hugging them. So love, not fear, and make it a creative possibility. Not even a challenge, it's a creative possibility. I work, as you know, Marty, and I invite both of you and everybody listening to create a new narrative. So really be careful about the words that we say.
Absolutely. Let me jump back then to continuing to share what we have accomplished so far and just bring everybody up to date, and then we can kind of move forward. So after that presentation, which many of the curators across the United States said they want to be like Raina when they grow up, a 9-year-old, was amazing. But we are talking about words that President John Quincy Adams himself said. Okay, he watched the play Othello. He was revulsed. His mother also, the First Lady of the United States, said she was sickened. And so when Dr. Joy Nicole talks about the root of why we think the way we do, or act the way we do, or feel the way we do, or consider things, we really were surprised to see this root, the hero of the court of Amistad, right, who was so famous that he was disgusted and mentioned he felt that at the time what they called was wrong. Now, miscegenation is a pretty heavy word, so I thought I'll just try to spell that for everybody. But we call it interracial or intermixed today. But this was the big word of the day, miscegenation, and the interbreeding of people considered to be of different racial types. So he was against this. So when we say miscegenation, this was a whole new word for me. And miscegenation is a term which refers to reproduction of people who are considered to be members of different races, which we know is bullcrap because we're all from the same race. We're all Homo sapiens. That's our genus. We are all the same race. But we'll get into that another day. So lo and behold, look at what happens at one of the dinners in Boston. Guess who's there? The British star, Fanny Kemble. She is at a dinner with the president in Boston. She's a famous Shakespearean star. And she publishes his comments that she said were astonishing, that he found this to be wrong, and that he was sickened when he watched the black man put his black hands on that white girl in the play. And then this leads to many people making comments that Desdemona, the white lady, got what she deserved, death. And of course, Othello is lost and forlorn and upset. And then we started doing some introspection and study about him and the First Lady, his mother. And that's when the president later published essays about blacks and whites having sex, marrying, and having unnatural babies. So miscegenation is really the 5 colors of skin that are taught to children today in the American school system: yellow, red, brown, black, and white. So the president of the United States is against any color of skin mixing or falling in love or being together. And I would just like to stop right there and ask for any comments. I'm going to just stop sharing that. That's a lot to think about miscegenation and his negative comments.
But I think it goes back to what I just said, words. The words are very contracting. And it's very interesting, in studying gender dynamics, intelligence, men and women. Men are actually more convergent in the way they work, and women are more divergent. So maybe at the core of this is this biased opinion, which has created the roots and many other I can't even say the word
Miscegenation.
It's a mouthful. Even the attorney Tony Ann Marcolini from New Jersey and New York said, "Well said."
Yeah. I think the other thing is, because for me, my passion is conversation without judgment, is actually getting the words out there into this, if you like, a sacred space between people, so we can actually look at them and say, no, that's not right. That doesn't feel right, because we've got to go into our feelings. And, when was that conversation? It was in 1700 and something, was it, Marty?
1800s.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
1800. So,
yeah, early.
I mean, what is sad is that, so many years, centuries later, we still haven't got to go to this is now the time. We've really got to be focused on expanding our words and our understanding. So when people don't know something, they make assumptions and they hold on to perceptions. And actually, when you challenge them, they might even say, I don't know where that came from, but I'm living with it. Is that good? Is that helping you? No, it's not. Well, let's change it. Not forgetting our roots ever, but drawing a line in the sand and starting together to forgive the unforgivable. If we look at the indigenous tribes and what's happening in terms of bringing peace together, remember my passion is world harmony. We can only do world harmony when we all come together, and we really love the mixture. And the mixture of life is all of us coming together in love, not in fear and hate, war. So really, it's good to get the words out there. And the magical conversation is when you put the topic in the middle of the conversation. So nobody owns it, but everybody owns it. Because what you're looking at is, what's my perception of that word? What's your perception? Gosh, I didn't realize I didn't even know what that word was. I never heard it before today. So, it's being intrigued and curious and interested and wanting to expand and understand and embrace everybody. What do you think?
Anyone else? Well,
I wanted to make sure Antoine didn't want to add a comment first.
Any comments?
He's not.
Wait a minute. He muted himself again.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. You're unmuted now. Yep. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So I think there's a few slices of where things are departed, because I think history is the greatest teacher. Experience is another great teacher. So I think we've been conditioned between generations on what was tolerated and accepted. And when you're in an environment and you accept certain things, you may not be sure of something, but if you're taught something and no one corrects you, you assume that is the right way to behave. And I think our behavior, especially in our current environment, hasn't been indicative of how we treat one another. And how we treat one another is based on how we treat ourselves. So again, it goes back to the reflection of self and how we feel about ourselves, which is a reflection of how we treat others. So I think this kind of goes to, we can't be honest with ourselves if we're not willing to have dialogue and be effective in our communication with others. So I think that breaks down when we make an assumption or presumption based on norms and social values in which we were raised to understand. We have to be willing to challenge ourselves and challenge other people on how we see ourselves. And then once we kind of see where those cracks are, then we can actually start to explore, why difference doesn't really matter, but people believe difference matters because people say we're all the same, but at the same time, we're not all the same, but we can share ideologies and beliefs and religious beliefs and educational beliefs based on how we have that conversation. So if you don't have the conversation, it's very hard to change the paradigm.
Absolutely.
I have to say, Dr. Pauline and Antoine both said something. I hear myself. I hear echo.
Let me mute myself and make sure it's not me.
It went away. So I just want to piggyback off what both of them said. First, love absolutely is the root of what I would say all things.
Yes,
We cannot, like Antoine said, we cannot tell the truth about others and how we have othered other humans, right? Because we other humans. We can't tell the truth about that unless we tell the truth about ourselves. And we can't tell the truth about ourselves until we recognize love. And that happens very early on in our lives. I have 5 children, and the manner in which I present love to them is the way they'll understand how to receive it unto themselves, right? They will, it's just something we are given. It's a gift we're given. So it's the root of all things. And so when we're talking about difference and valuing it, the basis there, the foundation there is, I can only value in a way that I understand the concept of value. I can only love in the manner in which I understand the concept of love, right? So we tend to be very selfish and we love others the way we expect to be loved, right? So, and this is something we see repeatedly in relationships that tend to fall apart because the person is presenting love to the other in a way that they would want to receive it without valuing the difference of the other and saying, I need to love you the way you need love and the way you were taught love exists. And then I will receive from you love in the way I was taught love exists. That is where we begin to really value difference. When we begin to understand that the very foundation of who we are as people starts with how we've begun to love ourselves, which starts from the beginning, very early in development. And when you try to come back in your 30s, 40s, 50s and have these conversations, if there is a challenge, the challenge is I was taught love is inner, it's mine, it's selfish, it flows in one direction. You know, I'm to receive it. It has to look, feel, behave a certain way. We're not really taught to love in a way that's external, right? We're not really taught to give it. We're taught how to receive it. We're taught to recognize it. And our hope in having conversation is that we become people who listen, who actually hear messaging and receive it and can extrapolate from it. So then it becomes external. We can give it back. When that happens, it all begins with communication, from the mother's first, caress to, whispering, rubbing the belly, all of that. That communication is how we recognize how we love ourselves and how we express it to others. And that is the beginning of valuing difference. And so when, like premature babies, when they don't have that touch, when they don't have that love communication, when it's not expressed, then they don't thrive, right? And this is what happens when we begin to devalue others, or we begin to practice the habit of othering. We're not thriving. We're not understanding communication, human behavioral communication, because we haven't had love given to us in a way that we love ourselves enough to be able to express it outwardly. And so that is what conversation requires, right? Is that foundation that says, I can listen, I can hear, I can receive, I can internalize it, and I can give it right back. And when we miss that when we're young, it is an opportunity, right, Dr. Pauline? It's
Absolutely.
an opportunity when we're older, because we've not learned that practice. We've been so self-sided, so one-sided for so long. So I think that's what we're trying to do with this conversation, with this exhibit, and there's some shock value, right? But it's because we're trying to get people to look inwardly so that we can express and share in a safe way, in an honorable way, externally. And that, I think, is what is most significant about generally conversation and museums specifically, because they give us an opportunity to look at things historically and challenge ourselves and sharpen ourselves, us inwardly, by looking back, right? And then bringing that into conversation. So I'm very excited about what we're doing.
And we've never been ashamed about holding our responsibility at the museum with all of our 28 board members and trustees about being a mirror to society today. We are not just here for dusty glass cases from yesteryear, but how can we take on today and hold ourselves responsible for mirroring society's problems today to help society today? And a lot of museums are terrified. I talk to boards and they are like, you are out of your mind. The issues you guys take on are, and then to see like a year or two later, Joy Nicole, that other museums are doing it. And we were told the whole No Darkies Sit in this section of the bus was outrageous and inappropriate. And then the Constitution Center had a huge exhibit a year later with a statue of Thomas Jefferson, and a wall behind him of the hundreds of names of every slave was on the, and so I called that person and said, see, we were outlandish, outrageous, inappropriate, all those words you use. But the Constitution Center is doing it now in Philadelphia, so it's okay. Okay, we're not a nutcase, a jackrabbit anymore, a lunatic.
You're a trendsetter.
We're trying to be. I'll be right back with our hosts today for the Othello is Disgusting exhibit. And first, Dr. Joy Nicole Martinez. We're going to take a commercial break. Hang in there for 1 second, everybody. We will be right back. thank you to our sponsors. These are the people who pay the bills. We have quite a few of them, and we only have one more commercial break. So at this point, I wanted to continue to move forward and just catch everybody up to date on where we're at, and then share our screen again here. So we did see quite amazingly that the museums and race, the whole presentation across the United States went very well with Raina speaking at 9 years old. I think it was the youngest speaker they ever had. And you can read about that here in Chicago, how they got started with museums and race. 24 museum professionals came together in Chicago during a 3-day convening. And then this started with Museums and Race, Transformation and Justice. And it grew out of a conversation about the museum response to Ferguson that the museum group, which we call TMG, inside the American Alliance of Museums, had in 2015. We are a member of the American Alliance of Museums and the North Carolina Museum Council. So when we see these things occurring, we naturally want to help and get involved. And that's how this got started and where it began. A lot of people have asked about the micro conference and going back into 2017, 2016. Where is this all coming from and what has happened and going on. So during this particular presentation last year when I spoke, I asked all of the curators online this very interesting question, because we think that this exhibit goes beyond just a black man, Othello, and a white woman, Desdemona. And so this may be a direction that we head in, but I asked the question, how willing are the Asians who are on today to have a Mexican-American doctor from Laredo, Texas, take over interpreting their history at the San Francisco Museum, or a black MBA candidate who is a CEO of a historically white museum in Raleigh. So I would like to throw that question there to everybody and see if there is any comments about that.
So this is, I think the thing is about authenticity and being genuine. So our world history, our Earth history is all of our history, and we've all been attacked by COVID. So we've been put into this melting pot together. And I think one of the things that came up from what you said earlier, Dr. Joy Nicole, is that if love is the flow of energy, then there should be genuine, authentic love in the way we present everybody's cultural experience in history. And it's about honoring that and not being conditional about anything. Living in Malaysia for 4 years was a fantastic experience for me, a Brit. I'd never lived outside of Great Britain. I traveled, but living somewhere is very different. And in Malaysia, as you probably know, there's three very distinct cultures. There's their ethnic cultures and religious cultures of Muslim, Buddhist, and Hindu. So you live there and you have a Hindu temple next to you and a Muslim mosque there, and everybody gets on with each other. They explain each other's history. Although curiously, they don't intermarry. So it's about honoring what people want to do. So if these exhibitions are about different cultures, that's fabulous. As long as people aren't critical about anything, it's about being interested. What is it teaching us? Antoine, you said, our history, our roots, it teaches us what has been before in order to grow something better in the future. And one of the other things I want to say is that came to me recently, you can't legislate for love. Mm-hmm. Love is being. And in fact, what you were saying, Dr. Nicole, is that we give love, we receive it. It's all about the flow. And it's about being love. The essence of every single cell and molecule in our body is ours to look after. I often say to my classes, whose body did you come with today? And I don't mean somebody else, I mean your own body. You know, get to like it, even when you have some illness or disease. You know, we know there are a lot of people who get to be very ill and get miserable, but some people who are ill face it with a joyful experience of healing. It's all about choice. So I think if different cultural ethnicity is presenting different cultures, that's really good, because we can cross-populate the information. Yeah?
I think
Absolutely.
what you just said is perfect, because you said it's all about choice, and that actually is love. Like we talk about love, and other people say, "Oh, you know, it's so touchy-feely gobbledygook." But the truth is, love is just choice. It's choosing to be patient, choosing to be kind, choosing. You know, it's the everyday choice to behave in a way that is honorable and gives honor. That's, you know, that's love. It isn't the feel good, you know, romantic kind of wispy, you know, the thing that we sometimes feel. That's a part of love's, you know, it's a reaction to choosing to love. So that's when I say love, when you say love, when we're talking about love, we're not talking about just feeling a certain way. It's about choosing to behave, right? Because that's my understanding of love, is that it's my choice to, in response to something, either myself or some thought or some other person's behavior, my choice to behave in a way, to react in a way, to respond in a way. That is love. It's the expression. And that's why I go back to saying it's the foundation of all things, because how we're taught to react and respond is how we're taught to love.
Mhm.
And so whether it's self-loathing that you're taught because you haven't been taught to love yourself, or right, or the repulsion of others because you haven't been taught to love others, that's where we have to begin. We have to start.
So Dr. Joy Nicole, there's something wrong there if both mother and son, so former First Lady, highly educated, living in Europe, living in England, and son, who is going to be the President of the United States, later a senator, something is self-loathing or not loving and not open. And I don't care when you're living, because we had Copperhead abolitionists up north, and England got rid of all of slavery in 1824. Something is not right there in that family of the President of the United States.
Well, I was going to say, one of the big problems we've got is when the negative fear, loathing, trauma is in somebody in that influential position.
Yes.
And this is our challenge in the world. You know, 20% of the world is actually hopeful and wise and seeking higher consciousness. That doesn't necessarily mean they're in the government, and that could be our government here or my government at home. So 80% of the world might be in fear. That's kind of the rough feeling in the field of work I'm in, that they're looking for somebody to save them. If that person or people are conditioned by a past which has made them negative, that's where the flow is blocked. And we need to think about mind flow. And this is where women are very good at it, because we are natural flow people. We are divergent, we are flowing, we understand, we nurture our babies, we gather our troops together. And this is not about not men like yourselves. You're very wise and loving, but we have to understand we're all in this together. And I was studying a book by a very wonderful indigenous investigation into all the tribes, all the different colored skins. We can't be separate. We're all in this together. So what wisdom do we bring together from different tribes, from different generations? You know, I'm a different generation to Gen Z. They have a different view of the world. I need to listen to them. Men are different to women, different types of men are different. You know, unless we listen and make that choice, we're never going to understand the magic of the new and the unknown that now faces us. And this is a critical crossroad point in which we need to get everything into that sacred space of conversation.
Absolutely. I'll go back to that because the guy that exposed all this in the Wall Street Journal last year, he needs to be thanked, this particular doctor from Columbia University, and helped us to kick this off. So I hope everybody can see that there, the National Endowment for the Humanities article. Can you guys see that? Can everybody?
I can't actually read it. You need to read it.
Oh, I can make that a little bit bigger for you, but yeah. So this was an article in the Wall Street Journal by Dr. James Shapiro at Columbia University. It was called Shakespeare in a Divided America. And they did a Q&A with him, a questions and answers about his latest book that he had published. Can you see Dr. Shapiro there, everybody?
Yeah.
Yep. So he published his latest book, and it was covered and in the Wall Street Journal. And his question was, what can Shakespeare, who lived in 1564 to 1616, a centuries-old English playwright and poet who never set foot in the New World, what can he tell us about our America today? And that's where a lot of this started. I'm not actually that brilliant to think of these things myself, but we did then say, let's go into the court and let's see who the real black man is of nobility that is in the English court with the Queen. That is actually the real basis for Othello and where Shakespeare got this idea from. And so, this was like really interesting to read about. And we have been studying more, I know all of us, and some of us have been mansplaining. But to really go in there and start to study what is going on during this age and some of the original materials you could see here in this National Endowment for the Humanities article. So I encourage people to come in here and study a little bit more. Feel free to read a bit more. And of course, ultimately, Othello today is a very famous play. And we thought to ourselves, like, what are we teaching kids today? When they go and see Othello, is there the introspection of inclusion, colonialism and its roots, immigrants, heritage, hate, skin color, the one race on earth of the human race? We have mentioned here Black Lives Matter also, ethnicity, interfaith marriage, different eating behaviors of cultures and other issues are forming this growing body of discussion. But today, I can't tell you how many times I heard the word love from you ladies. And I really think we have to, moving forward, figure out how we're going to build love into this exhibit. And how do you put love in a glass case? What does it look like? What are the objects we need to purchase? And when we were building the Rosa Parks exhibit, it has continued to expand over 2 years' time. And one of the most amazing things that we were able to get a hold of was one of the new Mattel dolls of Rosa Parks. And so that was added to the exhibit. And this exhibit will kick off in the spring of 2022. We don't have an exact date yet. But I'll just end it right there, because that really is, we have other stuff in here that we talked about today and many other cabinet level projects. But as far as the Othello is Disgusting and what we think we want to do in this exhibit. And so we do have a link here for everybody watching from the fall of 2020. Dr. Joy Nicole released. I have a link again to Dr. Joy Nicole here. but she did release an outline, and that outline is right here. If you'd like to take a look at her outline, you could just click on that PDF. It will deliver it for you, and you could take a look at it. So next month when we meet, we can talk a bit more and invite other people on, anybody that we like. She has a mission, a vision, values. I see here love. So we have our work cut out for us this year to try to figure out the tragedy of Othello and how to put love in there. And the final thing is, let me just scroll back up there for everybody, and we'll go into one more commercial break. But here we have, you can follow along with the commission's studies here and our questions that'll be coming up for the basis of future meetings. And you can also add to this if you would like. This is on Google Docs. So anybody that would like to add to this, we have here questions like Black Lives Matter. Is it a solution, or should it be Black Lives Matter also? Why Black Lives Matter turns people off. Why they start frothing at the mouth so much, you know. Well, all people matter. All people matter. It's like, calm down. Calm down, bro. Okay? It's like, we do want to talk about that. Maybe we can knock out 2 of these in one meeting. Here we have Black men touching white women. I think we covered that enough today. But if anybody wants to make a comment here, you can make a comment. And then we have, you know, the proposed reparations. Here in our state, we were the first city in American history to authorize reparations in Asheville, North Carolina. But, you know, there are things about this, $347,000 for each person. How are they going to do that? Are they going to do skin tests where you would have to go to LabCorp of America and have your pigment tested? What is going to be the... So please take a look at all these questions and add to them. I said this is not easy to talk about. I went through a lot of this. I'll just switch back now, everybody, and stop sharing. I went through a lot of this in Hawaii when I lived in Hawaii. The discussions of casinos and who is a real Hawaiian, and when they do the blood test, what is going to be the DNA medical basis to authorize people to now claim, move back home. I also went through all this when I lived in Connecticut with the Mashantucket Pico Nation. As soon as they opened up Foxwoods, that we were going to have the largest casino in the known Earth's history. Oh my gosh, everybody wants to move back home. Yeah, I'm a member of the tribe. I'm a member of the... They have a test that you have to take, a medical test. And then the Mohegan tribe right next door, just 8 miles away from the Mohegan Sun Casino, they have a medical test. You don't get to just raise your hand and I cash in on the yearly payments. Same thing with the Cherokee Nation here in North Carolina. You don't get to just say, oh yeah, my grandfather was a member of this nation and tribe along. They have specific tests and requirements that you have to comply with. You don't just start getting to receive $14,000 a year for the rest of your life for free, and all of a sudden you remember the Cherokee Nation. How are we going to do this? How would this work? How? You know, I don't know what the answers are, but there's a lot of hot topic button issues on there, and I will throw it over to Dr. Joy Nicole Martinez, our chairperson. We have about a couple minutes left. Dr. Joy Nicole, would you like to close for today?
I would like to just say, first, I'm always blown away by the contribution of this community. And so thank you, Antoine and Dr. Pauline, because we're just more powerful together. And I really do enjoy your input. I mean, on the show, but also on all the other platforms which, you know, through which we connect. And I'd also like to just say, join in, you know, jump in. This is a conversation, the conversation that will build our, and I'm saying that it's our museum exhibition. It's ours. And it can only be as broad and as creative and as curious and curiosity provoking, right, as we encourage it to be. So let's do that together. Join us, and thank you all very, very much. And thank you, extraordinary Marty, for all that you do.
Thank you, because look, here is one of our friends, a Muslim lady who is so educated that lives in Indonesia, is echoing your comments across the earth, and it's probably 2 a.m. for her, or 12 midnight. And Antoine, a goodbye message from you today?
Yeah, I think this is an important conversation. I think we have to be willing to engage, because if you're not willing to engage, we can't change the paradigm. So we have to be respectful of others and be willing to alter our perspective so that we can learn from one another. And I think we can move forward if we're willing to do that. Absolutely.
And Dr. Pauline, can you sign us off?
I will sign us off by saying, just remember, expansion. Expansion. Always think expansion. Is this love? Am I feeling expanded? Is it contracting? Is fear? So make a choice in any moment of the day, whatever you're doing, whatever's coming towards you, to be expansive. This conversation has been expansive, and I'm very delighted to be here. Thank you, Marty. Thank you, Dr. Joyner Cullen. Thank you, Antoine. Fabulous to meet you. Magical conversation.
Thank you, everybody, again, from the United States Presidential Service Center. We love all of you. And don't forget, it is Mother's Day week, so Mother's Day is not over yet.